Antisense Therapeutics is initiating a new study for its drug to treat Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. And with me is Antisense's CEO, Mark Diamond, to explain this. So, Mark, great to see you again. And tell us, why is this a significant development?
No, thanks, Jane. And likewise, it's lovely to be speaking again to you today. The significance of this study is that it allows us, Jane, to be able now to move forward potentially with the clinical development of our drug for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, just as you highlighted, in the US at higher doses and for a longer duration of dosing than what we have been restricted by in the US by the FDA to date. So the study that we're looking to run is what's known as an animal toxicology study, an animal safety study. This will be done in monkeys, and we'll be dosing these monkeys, Jane, for 9 months. And so the FDA have asked us to run this safety study as a prerequisite to lifting a partial hold that we have in the US on our program in Duchenne muscular dystrophy, where we're restricted to dosing at a specific dose level, 25 milligrams of our drug once weekly, but to 6 months of dosing. And what they've said to us is, if you successfully conduct this animal safety study, we'll consider higher doses of the drug, but also importantly, Jane, allowing you to dose beyond the 6 months that the drug's been restricted to at the present time. So it's a really exciting development for the company, as it looks like, if we're successful, of course, which we anticipate being, that it would open up that opportunity in the US for longer and higher dosing.
Okay, so I can see why. So this is the FDA was cautious. Now they've seen enough promise and lack of harm that they're willing to go a little bit further. So this is a significant step for US approval.
It's definitely an important step on the path to running the longer term studies that we would need to do to get an approval in the US, Jane. So just as you described, it is an important advancement. The FDA were happy for us to dose up to the 6 month level, but they just want this additional, confidence around the safety of the drug beyond 6 months of dosing to allow us to go 12 months and longer in patients with Duchenne's, which is what we would need to be able to do to seek approval for the drug in the US.
Got it. When will the study start, and when do you expect results?
So we're very fortunate, we're in a position to be able to start dosing in the study before the end of this year. So what had happened, just a little bit of background here, is to another reason why we're very pleased that we're able to start this study is that there's been a chronic shortage of monkeys to be able to run animal safety studies of this type. COVID has impacted on that, along with restrictions of importation of monkeys, say out of China into the US, which is the main source of monkeys. That has prevented us from being able to look to start this study. And we really had no certainty as to when we were going to be able to start this trial, but we have been keeping in contact with one of the research laboratories that run these studies, and they told us that they'd had a cancellation with one of their customers so that the monkeys are the right type and age, which is really important, Jane, for the successful conduct of one of these studies, that these were going to be available to us. So it's allowed us to be able to initiate the study much earlier than we've anticipated. So we're looking at commencing dosing in this study before the end of this year. Trial results first half of 2024.
Yeah, now it's fascinating. As I was doing some research for this interview, I had no idea that there was a shortage of monkeys for these clinical trials, and that it's an impact of COVID is just, and yet another thing that is, impacted everything globally. COVID has.
And that's exactly right, Jane. And you wouldn't know, I guess, unless you were, in drug development and having to sort of contemplate this very important phase of drug development for a new medicine. And as you say, it's just been one of the many challenges we've had to confront. But for us, it's really opened up as a really exciting opportunity. And to think that we can start the study as early as the end of this year is really much better position than we thought we were a few months ago.
Now, we've talked about the FDA and how they're allowing this. Will this satisfy requirements of any other global regulatory bodies?
It's a very good question. So the existing safety data that we've generated today, which is we've run studies in both mice and in monkeys for 6 months. The European regulatory authorities have accepted that as the basis for allowing us to dose 12 months and longer in European studies. So it wasn't a requirement of the European regulatory authorities. It was something that was specifically requested by the FDA. But we do think, Jane, that this additional safety data, of course, is going to be very helpful and welcomed by other regulatory authorities internationally, because it'll just add to the overall safety database or experience that we have on the drug. One of the other things I should point out too, Jane, about this animal data is that if we are able to successfully remove the partial hold with the presentation of this data to the FDA, it will allow us to make submissions for the expedited regulatory programs that are available in the US, including fast track and breakthrough designation. So that's another really important feature of this, which is one of the important incentives that the US regulatory authorities make for companies that have got drugs for important diseases. And so if we can, again, move successfully through this study, it allows us that opportunity to contemplate these accelerated pathways in the US.
Yeah, and the US would be a big market for this treatment if it does, in fact, make it through all the regulatory approvals.
And, Jane, that, of course, is a major consideration here with us moving forward in this way. The US is, in fact, the biggest pharmaceutical market in the world. The European market for Duchenne's products, we expect to be on par with the US, but being able to have the confidence now of being able to have a clear path forward with the FDA and be able to return to the FDA with this data in this timeframe as early as the first part of 2024 is really important progress for us. One other important point to note as well too, Jane, I believe, is that we've talked about the clinical study that we're looking to run with our drug in Europe and Australia. And that clinical data, that we expect to be available around the same, first half of 2024. So we anticipate to be in a position where we can go to the FDA and other regulatory authorities, not only with this animal safety data at 9 months, hopefully showing no safety issues emerging from that study, but also with definitive data from our phase 2B clinical study. So, we are very much now, looking forward to 2023 and the early part of 2024, having that complete package of both safety data and clinical data.
Well, it's a perfect segue to what my final question was going to be next year. So what is Antisense looking forward to? And it sounds like really early 2024 is going to be a key thing, but what about 23? Like what kind of things are on your agenda for your strategy?
So certainly kicking off both this animal safety study and both the clinical trials, we're expecting to start both of them this year, or at least initiate those studies this year. So that'll be important confirmation for the market, us moving forward with those programs. There'll be news flow around the progress of both the clinical study and the animal safety study, toxicology study. We've also got some, though, very important initiatives that we're running in our pipeline, Jane, where we're looking at expanding the application of our drug for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, AT1102, into other disease settings. So we've got an important study where we're testing our drug in combination with an existing Duchenne drug on the market today in the US, selling, on track to sell over $1 billion in the US. So we're looking to use our drug in combination with that drug. That combination data we expect to have out before the end of this year. And also we're looking to run another study, again, in an animal model of limb-girdle muscular dystrophy disease, which is another devastating muscle wasting disease, where we have already shown an animal study positive data. Now we're moving forward, Jane, into a chronic study where we're going to be looking at important markers of disease progression in this model. That data is expected to be out the first half of 2023. And we've got, as we've chatted about before, Jane, a really important program in long COVID, where we're looking at both diagnostic and therapeutic applications. So we're expecting new data to emerge in 2023 around that program, even potential to announce progress with partnering arrangements around that. That's what we're focused on with the long COVID initiative, looking to take the IP that we've generated to date and look to partner that with bigger pharmaceutical companies and diagnostic companies. So 2023, really exciting year for a news flow, for catalysts, and into early 2024 when a major news will be around with our DMD clinical study and this tox program that we're reviewing today.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that we will be doing lots of interviews about it, Mark, as you update us as things go along. So great to hear about this, and we look forward to updates next year.
You're welcome, Jane. And again, thank you for the opportunity.